Chapter 13. Derek felt as though the entire world had been lifted off his shoulders. All the feelings of being alone and helpless now gone. Scarface is alive and a general of an army at that. We thought you were dead, Scarface muttered, holding Derek tightly to himself. I didn't know what to do, Derek responded, face still buried into Scarface's cuirass. I didn't know if you were alive or dead. Didn't even know where to start. We're okay, Derek, all of us, Scarface said with a wide smile. Albert, Splinter, we're all alive and well. But how are you alive? I know what I saw. I don't know either, man, Derek shook his head, slowly pulling away from the giant Redrak knight, wiping his tears off. I saw my body just fucking melt, and then just nothing. Literally nothing. No sound, no smell, no feeling, anything. Then, how are you here? Scarface continued, resting against the wall of the building they were next to. How did you get here from the ether? In a Redrak body and not a Promo one. There was this woman, Derek explained. She was looking for someone. Jessie, probably a Promel like me. She got me instead and stuffed me in, well, as you can see. Derek spread arms to gesture towards his body. And then, when she realized I wasn't Jessie, she just left me. Like, just told me where this village was and just fucked off. Scarface let out a stunned sigh as a memory roared itself back into mind. Albert! What? What about him? Derek demanded, gripping Scarface's shoulders. What happened with Albert? Is he okay? He's fine, Derek, Scarface assured him, gently moving his hands away from his shoulders. I'll explain later. Oh, Keck. There's just so much to explain. Derek let out a sigh as he rested on the wall beside Scarface, slowly allowing himself to sit. Well, give me the shortest answer you can give. What did I miss? Scarface sighed as he tried to come up with such an answer. After sitting down next to Derek, he gave up and just gave some kind of response. We've been around for a very long time, Derek. Far longer than anyone should, especially for a Redrak, our kind. Derek grew silent, then slowly stared over to Scarface. How long exactly? Scarface took in a deep, hesitant breath before he answered. The three of us, Albert, Splinter, and I. We've been here for a little over 1,000 years. Derek went slack-jawed, silent, as he was floored by such an answer. All he could do was rest against the wall to try and come to grips with such a revelation. Jesus Christ, Derek muttered after some time. He then embraced Scarface into his arms, holding him as tight as his weakened arms would allow. I'm so sorry to all of you. I should have been there. Derek, you have nothing to be sorry about. Scarface responded, wrapping an arm around his master. We all thought you were dead. Cock, I'm pretty sure you thought you were dead. I'll be honest, man, Derek sighed, beginning to rest on him. Even now, I still don't have a fucking clue what happened. IT was like a fucking fever dream, dude. Hell, I'm still wondering if I'm just in a coma, and this is all just some elaborate construction of my mind or something. Derek, I promise you, this is real, as unbelievable as it is, Scarface said firmly, gripping Derek's hand and placing it on his cheek. I may be different than what I used to be, but I'm still Scarface. Still the same Redrak that you took in and cared for all my years. Still the same, foul-tempered little recce you had to deal with. Succumbing to his moment of weakness, being flung back to his room, Derek began petting Scarface from ear to neck. The scarred rat man let out a blissful exhale, having forgotten that feeling he loved since then. So, is this what you've been doing? Derek asked after some time, looking over Scarface's armor. For over 1,000 years. You've been fighting? Scarface nodded with melancholy. After we grieved and started to try and move on, we all just fell into our own ways of doing that. Splinter became a spy. Albert some kind of genius, while I just signed up with the State Army. Turns out, when you're desperate to stop feeling a certain way, you get rather good at something pretty quickly. And, Derek inquired, did it work? Dia, we weren't trying to forget you, Scarface exclaimed, panicking when he saw Derek's face. We would never forget you, we just… I know, Derek interrupted. I'm just asking, were you able to feel something else? He sighed and rested fully against the wall, hesitant to respond. After a moment, he decided to answer. For a time, yeah. We still thought about you every day. We were just able to have our own lives. I became Supreme Commander of the State Army. Splinter was feared across the world for being completely unknowable. And Albert was just pumping out discoveries and inventions over the years. We made the Empire the envy of the known world. Based on what Derek has overheard since arriving here, he knew where this would lead. But, Scarface hesitated. Derek smelled a stronger surge of what must be the smell of sadness. It took Scarface several moments to answer. It didn't last, no matter how hard we tried. IT fell. And after that, we just what? Derek demanded after Scarface trailed off with a sigh. He hesitated for several moments before finally speaking. We just gave up. We couldn't save you. Couldn't save the Empire. So we decided that… What's the point? Derek felt his heart get crushed. What was only a few seconds in that dark void after falling? It was over a millennia for Scarface and the others. An entire millennia spent trying to put the pieces of themselves back together, only to get shattered once more by another thing they couldn't save. But after looking at Scarface for a little longer, Derek felt determination swell in him. Gripping Scarface firmly, he looked at the battered knight in the eye and said, with a voice of confidence, I'm here now, Scarface. In fact, it's because I'm here that things are going to get better. After we fuck up those Ormo, we're finding the others, getting the family back together. Yeah? And when we do, it's just going to be us. I don't know if I'm immortal like you guys, but goddamn, am I going to spend however long I have with you guys, try and make up as much lost time as possible. During that talk, Scarface lit up with invigorated hope, grinning widely by the end of it. Oh, you bet your caking ass we're going to make up lost time. Do you have any idea what we went through without you, huh? Derek started to laugh. There's the temper he was waiting for. A sign that Scarface is back. What the cock are you laughing about? Scarface growled. I'm serious. We spent over 1,000 years trying to live without you. And now you decided to show up? Hey man, better late than never, right? Derek shrugged with a half-assed grin. No, cack you with that. Scarface snapped. I have 1,000 years of stuff to say to you. I missed you. We all missed you. I had nightmares for centuries of seeing you fall like that. Nightmares of what could have happened to you, what you went through, what we didn't see. All right, I get it, man, Derek said as he threw his hands up defensively. You guys miss me. I'm sorry I wasn't here, but I'm here now and I'm not going anywhere, Kay. Caking right, you're not going anywhere, Scarface shouted, shooting up to his feet. From now on, I'm keeping an eye on you. You're not going anywhere without me, got it? Ugh, where's the caking Ormo? I'm in a… Scarface's rage petered out into hesitant worry. It's okay, man. Derek gave a reassuring smile. Don't worry about what you think I want, all right? Whoever you are now, just be yourself. That's all I want and will ever want. But no, it's not that, Scarface, when although still worried, still had his temper flare back up. I don't want you to see or hear me what I'm like now. I don't want to make you think any different about me. What? Why would I think any differently? Derek questioned in shocked confusion. Just shut up. Scarface gave a growling huff. I'm still the same man you raised. I am not any different. Okay, Jesus, you're still the same Scarface I know and love, man, Derek exclaimed, knowing it'll be pointless to argue. And, shit, speaking of which, shouldn't you be like planning or commanding or some shit? Scarface nodded but gave a smile. Yeah, but if it meant talking with you .. IT quote S worth it, Scarface's smile soon changed into a scowl. Provided, of course, you don't become a slobbering fool and get yourself killed just as I found you. Oh, if I find out you got killed just minutes after this, I'm coming back to the ether and I am going to beat your face flat. Scafin has been with that gray Ridrak for a while, Vinex said, periodically glancing down the street to where the crimson Ridrak walked with the mysterious man. That gray Ridrak is Tarak you've been on about, Divios replied, leaning on the wall of a building. The mysterious man who either raised or taught the three great Ridraks himself? Vinex stared at him wide-eyed in shocked disbelief. No, you're just caking with me, aren't you? Divios just stared at him with a serious expression, right into his eyes. Within moments, Vinex huffed out his acceptance, gripping onto the wall for support. So then, oh, kak, Vinex muttered, still trying to process through what he just heard. Don't intrude, Vinex, Divios said with a warning glare. We don't know the full story. The commander spent many generations believing that Tarak, or rather Derek, was dead. Whether that's true or not, Scafin deserves privacy. Let them have their moment to catch up and talk. Of course I won't intrude, Vinex replied with indignation. It's just, think of what Derek could tell us. Where has he been all these years? What happened that made Scafin, Sven, and Abet think he was dead? Was he truly dead? Or did he just wander this world aimlessly, and we just happened to have found him here? Be patient, Divios said simply. But regardless, you and I both know what will happen. If Derek is among us, we will treat him with the same respect as we give Scafin. Our commander holds him in very high regard, and I'm sure you'll know what will happen should our lord learn we haven't been behaving towards Derek. I'm not a fool, Diviox. Vinex sighed, growing annoyed at his tone. Either way, surely you also realize the problem here, yeah? What problem? Divios shrugged with suspicious intrigue. Scafin is vulnerable now, Vinex said softly after approaching him. Until this day, nothing could get to him. He was impervious. But now, with the discovery of Derek, Scafin now has a fatal weakness. Should the Ormel, or spirits forbid, the Melfolk learn of this, Derek is going to have every powerful man and woman coming after him to try and get to Scafin, or even the others. Sounds as though you hold little faith for our commander, Divios said as he stared at Vinex. I'm confident that as long as they stay close and work together, Derek will have the finest protection in the entire world. That's true. Oh, cock, here they come. Vinex shot to attention upon sighting Scafin, carrying Derek back towards the village center. And there they saw something that Divios and Vinex never thought was possible. Scafin, the Crimson Ridrak, was smiling. I take it you had a good conversation, sir? Bubbel asked politely. Yeah, we did. Scafin nodded, casting a glance to Derek. Well, guess there's no point trying to hide it. It's just going to come out sooner or later. Divio, Vinex, this here is Derek. He is my master, as well as master to Sven and Abet. Be on your best behavior around him. Am I clear? Yes, sir, they both replied in unison. Mauseon, Swibia. I am growing tired of these excuses. Artur scowled, pinching the bridge of his nose. In front of him was the dungeon captain, who had mysteriously been stalling his own king since last night. This time, however, Artur brought along his retinue of guardsmen, as well as his own personal weaponry, in an attempt to be more persuasive. Where is the Wudrak, who stands accused of poisoning Alfric Hohenzollern II, Duke and Unterkaiser of Grunismere? I don't know what else to say, my liege, the captain replied, his tone clearly expressing him being caught in a bad spot. My orders were clear. I am not to allow you to become personally involved with this matter on threat of treason. Jacques has sent down the order granting me access, Artur replied, and what you are doing right now is treason, disobeying and refusing a direct order from your sovereign lord and king. I swear to you, my lord, the captain pleaded, I have been given explicit orders not to allow you in the dungeons. It was made absolutely clear. Artur sensed something was wrong. While there's always the possibility of an order getting lost or mixed up, that only leaves the poor soul confused as to how to handle the situation. But this is different. The captain had been brought into full compliance of an order that demanded Artur to stay away, and has used language to ensure the captain would comply, even if Artur himself demanded otherwise. Captain, I do not think the order you were given was genuine. Artur began, coldly casual. I am giving you one last chance. Step aside now, otherwise I will be forced to have my men move you away. On cue, his guardsmen took up positions near the captain, ready to spring at a moment's notice. The wavering man was reaching his breaking point. Despite every motivation, he couldn't resolve what decision to stay with. His internal debate on full display in his body and face. It was only when Artur was about to give the order for his guards to forcibly remove the captain when he finally reached a decision, his face suddenly growing calm, eerily so. Inquisitors, claiming to be with the spy master, has been questioning the Woodrock since he was brought in, the captain said in an equally eerily calm voice. They just returned not too long before you arrived. I'd hurry if I were you, my lord. I'm sure I spotted a whammel amongst them this time. Artur bristled with shock, watching the captain unlock the iron door and stepping aside. His instincts were right. Something was going on. Wasting no time, he and his guards rushed down the stairwell. They raced past the rows of iron bar doors to the various cells of the dungeon, making their way to the main questioning room. Flanking the door was two hooded Hamels, appearing to be the inquisitors under Jacques. As soon as Artur and his men were visible, they thrust their hands forward, blasting forth a gout of fire that forced the king and his retinue to find cover. Now enraged, Artur raised up his heater shield and pressed forward, fighting through the geysers of flame hurled at him. He heard the rasp of blades being unsheathed as well as seeing the flames disappear. Readying his own sword, he saw the two impostors charging at him with daggers, their blades glowing with enchanted magic. Before he could move, his guards charged ahead of him and locked the hooded men into duel. Go ahead, my king, one guardsman shouted. We'll keep these rogues busy. Excellent work, Artur said as he charged past the duel, rushing the door. He grabbed the handle and yanked, praying to Athel that it wasn't locked. It swung open, and as he rushed in, he saw what was going on. There was the whammel above the Woodrock strapped to a wooden table, a small bloody knife in hand, and a large strip of fur being pulled off the chest of the Woodrock. In the name of Athel and the Covenant, I command you to stop, Artur shouted with a voice that could humble lesser kings. The whammel dropped the knife as he was startled, the strip from the Woodrock slapping back onto his body. With a snarl, the whammel pulled out small daggers and began throwing them at Artur, who immediately raised his shield and began to charge at him. Artur ready to swing and made his release. The whammel dodged the strike and flipped over Artur, already making a break for the door. Guards, stop them, Artur shouted, his voice booming throughout the dungeon. Trusting they'll accomplish the task, Artur rushed over to the Woodrock and checked on him. Stay calm, Drock. I'm here to aid you. The Woodrock didn't move, only letting out whimpers as his eyes furiously darted around. Artur was confused for a few seconds before he began to notice. Gripping the Woodrock's arm after removing the straps, he attempted to bend the limb. It was as stiff as a wooden board. It was Nysra, the whammel's signature poison of choice when hunting Drockfolk. Artur was about to make for the door when he saw movement in the shadows. Just as he prepared himself, a sack was dropped down onto the floor. In a moment of confusion, the figure that was in the shadows immediately vanished, despite Artur's attempts to relocate it. Making a judgment call, Artur moved towards the sack and opened it up. Inside was a squarish bottle as well as a note written in Swabian. For the poison, open the mouth but don't drown him. Read the note. Artur didn't waste time debating. Grabbing the bottle, he raced back to the Woodrock. Stay calm, I have the anti-poison, Artur assured him. After opening the bottle, Artur decided on a better way. Pulling back the Woodrock's lips, he carefully poured the anti-poison through his teeth, hoping that there were enough gaps between them so that he can drink. The movement of his throat told him he was getting the anti-poison. Artur played the safe route and endeavored to completely empty the bottle. As soon as it was empty, Artur tossed the bottle aside and went to check on his men, finding one at the door. "Ambushed, sir," the guardsman stated between breaths. "Got one, but the Wamel knocked out Aden. Others got away." "You did fine, soldier." Arter nodded and patted the guard's shoulder. "Lock that intruder in a cell, then get an apothecary. Both for Aden as well as the Woodrock." "Yes, sire." The guard nodded promptly and moved back into the dungeon. Letting out a sigh, Artur made his way back to the Woodrock, sitting down beside him. "I am aware you cannot speak at the moment, Woodrock," Artur said softly. "But as King of Swabia, I give you my solemn promise. If you tell me everything you know, and only the truth about the killing of Alfric at my festivities on Athulday, I will personally see to it that your wish be granted. Within reason." The Woodrock simply looked at Artur, with a strong river of tears flowing outward. "Scaffin, we see something," Venex reported after walking up to the venerable commander. "Ormel, but only one. A messenger," Scarface declared, holding his Spatha Maximus into a resting position. "Hand me your gladius if you don't mind." Sure," Venex said, drawing and then handing over his blade. After moving his Spatha over to his other hand, Scarface took Venex's weapon into his main hand, then looked back to Derek. "Stay here just in case, okay?" he said, motioning with the gladius. "Don't worry, I'm not planning to die. Ever." Derek nodded, glancing over at the open field and reducing his exposure promptly. Scarface gave a relieved sigh and nodded, then faced Venex. "All right, let's go." It was just a short jog towards the outside of the village when Scarface spotted him. The lone Ormel, unarmed and slowly approaching, whether it be caution or as a sign of peaceful intent. "Get the bows ready. Have them watch the horizon," Scarface ordered, then promptly moving towards the Ormel. Eyes constantly scanning the area, he made his approach to the Ormel, always watchful for any sudden surprise attack. After an eternity of walking and watching, the Ormel and Raedrak finally approached each other, stopping some distance apart. "You the blood-covered ready, right?" the Ormel asked, a voice that tried to be intimidating but just betrayed his fear all the more. "I am," Scarface nodded. "You're giving me a message, right? Out with it then." "Our boss, Hagrim Ironhead, is feeling nice today," the Ormel began. "If yous give yourself up to him, he might think about walking away from this camp. No smashing, no burning. Let me guess. If I don't, he'll smash and burn everyone and everything, right?" Scarface asked with a shrug. "Yeah, that's right," the Ormel nodded. "We's got more boys than you. Might want to think about it." "Already have, Kockoff." Scarface scowled and flicked his head. "You sure?" the Ormel questioned, taking a step back. "This is a one-off. If you says no, that's it." "I am," Scarface said firmly. "Leave." All right, I'm going," the Ormel said as he turned around and started jogging. He only made a few steps before Scarface hurled Venex's gladius, the blade ramming through the Ormel's chest. He went down like a puppet whose strings were cut suddenly. Casually, Scarface moved to retrieve the weapon, finding the Ormel wheezing and weakly crawling. Standing over the Ormel, he made ready to finish him off before he stopped. Worried, he looked back over to the village, checking if Derek was watching him. Certain that he wasn't, Scarface gripped the gladius and rent it through the center of the Ormel's body, before making a whipping motion to flick off any loose blood. And it was there that he became lost in thought. All these years he allowed himself to let loose in battle, to unleash all of his pent-up rage upon the Ormel and any other Melfolk who crossed him or the Raedrak people. And now that Derek is alive and present, things have changed. He no longer considers his past victories glorious. He feels ashamed, like a monster. Never will he let Derek see him like this. He won't do that. Should Derek be present, any and all of his kills will be quick and clean. The worst pain imaginable for him is to see Derek forever look at him as an unhinged, bloodthirsty madman, and not an honorable warrior who has survived innumerable battles. That's when his instincts flared up, a sense gnawing at the back of his mind. Looking towards the horizon, he saw figures along the edge of the hill, and then the sharp whistle of an arrow flying past him. Damn it, he exposed himself needlessly, and he almost got hit, or worse, died from it. The one thing that saved him was that the Ormal were terrible shots. He barely saw the sea of Ormal charging over the hill when he turned and ran back to where his men were stationed, who were ready to defend the village. "Here you go!" Scarface shouted as he tossed the gladius at Venex's feet, who quickly picked it up. "This is it, men! Here they come!" "Civilians are safe and secure," Diviov reported. "All of them," Scarface pressed, being careful not to sound like any Redrak lives have more value than another. "Yes, sir. Every single one." Divios nodded. Scarface sighed in relief. "That means Derek is safe as well." "Good. Now just hold down the positions. Watch each other's back, and the Ormal will be funneled towards us," Scarface shouted, readying his spatha. "No survivors. Kill every last one." Divios sped off on his glider to rejoin his company, while the main infantry forces were already dispersed through the village and hunkered down in defensible choke points. The Ormal launched their full frontal assault, a veritable sea of greenskins throwing themselves into the fray, ever lustful for war and destruction. As soon as they got close, the Legionnaire bowmen unleashed their volleys, armed with rapid-firing, magazine-fed repeater bows. The sky was nearly washed out by the sheer number of pilas shot forth. Massive scores of Ormal crashed to the ground. Some hit once, others just a glorified pincushion. In front of the bowmen were the infantry, their massive shields forming a wall and long hostas resting upon a notch corner, ready to thrust should the Ormal try them. Volley after volley, the bowmen were put to work. After the initial wave of pilas came a steady stream, variable number of Ormal crashing and dying before ever getting a chance to strike at a ready. And as soon as they got near the main line of infantry, at once they let loose their fearsome roar. "Here we go!" Surging forth, the greenskin tide crashed into the red Drak line. The first ranks of Ormal were skewered and pierced by the fearsome reach of their hastas. But in overwhelming numbers, the infantry were forced to move their grips up their weapons in order to deal with the close combat fight. The bowmen behind continued to fire on the additional Ormal charging in a terrifying roar that boomed through the sounds of war itself. Scarface charged forth into a thick concentration of Ormal. Gripping his spada tight, he swung with incredible force and expert angling of the blade edge. Within one strike, he decapitated several Ormal, and with every follow-up swing, either one or several Ormal met grislier ends. Bodies cut in two, each swing doing so at a different angle. Jets of blood drenching Scarface's long-drowned armor and spatha. Even in the midst of intense battle, not one Ormal could land a hit on him. "Oh, cock, it started!" Jern exclaimed under his breath, anxiously looking out the window carefully. "Tell me you hear that." "Yeah, I hear it." Derek nodded, his voice quiet. "All we can do now is trust that Scaffin and his men will pull through." "Cock! Look how many there are," Brastas huffed. "I can't even see the grass anymore." "To think, all of them were up in the Devil's Spine Mountains." Jern sighed. "How long have such numbers been up there, and we carried on like nothing?" "We'll be fine, Tiban," Demonak said confidently. "It's like Derek said, just trust in Scaffin and his men. They'll save us." "I really hope he does, boy," Jern sighed again, sitting down beside Derek. "I really hope so. I've heard stories about the Ormal. I am praying with everything I have that I don't get to see if they're true or not. If it's anything I've heard, it's not pretty." Lascivious sighed, some distance away. The conversation was broken by the sounds of shouting and the clangs of steel outside the estate. Jern and Brastas immediately shot to their feet and watched the door warily, already prepared to fight or flee. "Brastas, you got the bolts for the crossbow, right?" Derek asked, still calm despite the mounting tension within him. "Every one that I've made, yeah." Brastas nodded, the crossbow and its ammunition resting on the table. "As well as anything that can be considered a weapon. Better than nothing, right?" "Exactly." Derek nodded, then looked to everyone within the room. "We'll be fine. I trust those soldiers and Scaffin." I do too, Derek, Demonax stated, moving closer to him. Skaffen has lived for countless generations and has fought and led in so many more battles. I wouldn't be surprised if Skaffen finds himself bored here. Oh shit, that's right, Derek exclaimed before gripping Demonax's shoulder. I never got the chance to say this, but thank you, Demonax, for what you did for me. I seriously owe you. I'm glad I could help, Derek. Demonax smiled. If someone's in trouble, of course I'll do what I can. A deep, booming roar pierced the air, startling everyone in the room. Soon, heavy and thunderous clangs of metal as well as the undeniable sounds of death cries followed that roar. And each time more death screams sounded out, the Redrax grew more and more terrified. Brastas, get the bow. Hurry, Derek said, voice shaking somewhat. What's wrong, Reddies? That same voice shouted. Yous think you's too strong to fight me? Ha! Get out here! Everyone armed themselves. Brastas had the crossbow ready. Jern, Derek, Lascidius, and Demonax, armed with hastas. Derek wasn't sure how much damage he can do, considering he's still recovering from the poison, but goddammit, he's not going to hold back, not when his life is about to be on the line. I said, get out here, the voice screamed. On cue, the door was subjected to intense bashing, the cracking bangs assaulting the air as the hinges on the door tried everything they could to hold on. Demonax, you were the messenger, right? Derek asked, gripping his hasta tight. As soon as you see an opening, get the fuck out of here and warn the others that a flank's collapsed. Wha? I can fight, Derek, Demonax replied with indignation. I'm not leaving you here. If nobody informs Skaffen and the others that the Ormel has broken through a side of town, they'll get enveloped, Derek shot back. As soon as the Ormel encircle them, they're done. They have to reinforce this flank immediately. But, Demonax muttered, teeth clenched in frustration. I'm just getting madder and madder here, the Ormel shouted, continuing to bash the door down. Demonax, I won't think any less of you, I promise, Derek said as he looked at him in the eyes. Fighting and killing isn't the only way to be a hero. Being a surgeon is how I go about it. Lascidius spoke up, trying to control his breathing. Where one would kill a murderer, I try and save the life of an innocent. You, Demonax, you pass extremely important information around. I couldn't have saved Derek if you didn't tell me he was in danger, if I never knew about it. All right, Demonax shouted, giving in. I promise, as soon as I see a way, I'll find the others and tell them what happened. Demonax, head out the back, Jern directed. If it's clear, get moving, hurry. Got it, Demonax said, already rushing towards the back entrance. Actually, if it's all clear, why not avoid a fight and fuck off out of here, Derek asked, looking towards Demonax. You know, head to where Skaffen's at. Good idea, Jern acceded. Lascidius, help me move Derek. Brastas, get ready to shoot that thing. As soon as Derek got the support of the two Redrax, the group made their way over, the Ormel nearly busting through the main door. After arriving at the back entrance and seeing Demonax gone, they took that as their sign it was clear. Rushing through, they saw that there was fair distance between them and a group of Ormel fighting another line of legioners. They made their dash over the empty space between the estate and the next building. Look out! Brastas screamed, pushing the trio down. As they hit the ground, the whoosh of a thrown slasher went over them, lodging itself a little ways in front of them. When they looked, it was the Ormel trying to get after them. Derek's heart sinked in his chest, feeling terror grip him. It was an orc, huge and covered in iron armor by the looks of it, and he doesn't look happy. So yous thinks you can be all sneaky like, huh? The Ormel scowled, continuing his approach. Well, it just ain't your Tim-all. Brastas fired his shot, the bolt piercing the armor and lodging itself deep into the Ormel's shoulder. Let's go! Run! Wasting no time, the group got back to their feet and made an even more mad of a dash away, trying to find safety in the other ranks of legionaries. Derek felt a cold chill on his shoulders as he heard that same bellowing roar from behind. That Ormel is out for blood now. They nearly made it to the first building when Derek heard Brastas yelp out. When he looked, he saw an arrow sticking out of his back, Brastus weakly trying to crawl forward. "Brastus!" Derek cried out. Jaunt and Lascivious stopped and made their attempt to get him. All that did was allow the charging Ormal to close the distance fast. Having grabbed his slasha out of the ground, with another group of Ormal having joined in and following him. Lascivious thrusted his hasta forward, but the Ormal just slapped it aside, causing it to fall out of his grip. With an ear-shattering roar, he swung his slasha and split Lascivious's head from his shoulders. Everything became distant to Derek. This is the first time he's ever seen someone die in front of him. The head rolling, Lascivious letting out a horrified expression before falling still, his body crumpling down. His body has gone numb and the Ormal's voice has grown quiet. He felt intense nudging on his shoulders before it stopped suddenly. Then he was lifted. He saw the Ormal's face, full of murderous rage, and then blinding pain in his gut. When he looked down, he saw the slasha deep in his belly. That was when he felt an unholy surge throughout his body. Clamping his hands on the handle, he held on with inhuman strength. He knew that as soon as that blade was pulled out, he's dead. "Oi!" the Ormal shouted, trying to yank the blade away. "That's mine! Get your own ready!" Even with the Ormal's brute strength, Derek held on, driven purely by animalistic instinct at this point. He started to feel the blinding pain in his arms and his legs, but still he held on. And then a snap, as if someone pinching him suddenly let go. His arms and legs folded, and he felt his grip weakening. One final surge, all coalescing into his lungs. "Scarface!" Derek saw the blade pull out some length before he was dropped, feeling a rush of air beside him. The impact of the ground knocking out the wind and the last strength out of him, he saw Scarface, charging at incredible speed towards him. Derek had never seen as red of eyes as he saw in Scarface. "Was wondering when I'd find you," Hagrim laughed, seeing his nemesis arrive. "Now then, let's finish this." Scarface didn't answer, already on Hagrim when he finished. Surprised, Hagrim swung his slasha. Scarface caught it with his hand, the blade carving down to his palm before stopping. Yelping, Hagrim couldn't do anything more as Scarface tore into his neck with his teeth, tearing out a massive chunk before grabbing the slasha with his other hand and cutting down the other Ormal with one swing each. Yeah, that does it," one of the Ormals said before shrieking, "Let's leg it, boys!" Scarface could only let out a blood-curdling scream as the Ormal ran in mindless terror. But still, he dropped the slasha and ran over to Derek, quickly scooping him up. "I'm here," Scarface said in a calm voice. "You're going to be okay, Derek. Stay with me." Fucking Derek couldn't hold a thought, the sight of the blade in him breaking him each time. "Just stay with me, Derek. I'm getting you help," Scarface repeated. Getting Jaunt onto his back and immediately sprinting with physically impossible speed back to the camp. Chapter 14. Scarface got back to the main position with speed rivaling the Death Riders. Once he found the surgeon's triage, he immediately set Derek upon one of the tables, followed by Jaunt. Spotting one of the surgeons going for Derek, he immediately gripped the man's robe with his split hand, causing both blood to drench the immediate area and shocking the surgeon deeply. "If you let him die," Scarface began, his voice low and terrifying to others as he brought his face close. "I'm sending you to the ether to bring him back. Am I clear?" The surgeon stammered over his words before finally nodding. Scarface let him go and grabbed one of the spare polearms for the Death Riders, not caring if he lost his Spatha Maximus or not. It's time for something different anyways. Seeing the main line of the battle, the clash of steel against iron, a disciplined wall of Redrak's shield and hasta against a choking sea of savage Ormal, Scarface felt his fury reignite. The exact same thing he felt when he saw Derek attacked and gravely wounded by the orc boss he recognized from the mountains. Hagrim Ironhead. Still not feeling his split hand, steadily oozing blood, he gripped the weapon firmly, letting his incomprehensible rage erupt and peak, letting loose a scream of war that stunned Redrak and Ormal alike before charging in. The Ormal cut down by the score with each swing. "Hey, Top priority, right here, the Master Surgeon exclaimed, grabbing the attention of two other assistants. Come on, hurry! Immediately taking their positions, the Master Surgeon placed his hands on each side of Derek's head, concentrating to let out soothing magic to calm him. Derek's panic and shock was of such intensity that the Master Surgeon was forced to lull him into sleep, which required several moments of effort. Okay, hurry. We don't have much time, the Master stated, his magic allowing him a perception into the Redrak body. Ah, cock. Lots of damage. Okay, Adonis, you know what to do. Start with the seals. Got it, Adonis replied, placing his hands near the wound and concentrating, a bright yellowish light emanating from his hands. With his magic, he searched and began forming arcane seals on damaged innards and blood vessels, working to ensure that when it's time to remove the blade, Derek won't suffer grievous blood loss or receive secondary damage from his innards. Almost, Adonis stated, unprepared for the sheer scale of damage he's working with. Derek's stomach has been sealed, as well as much of his waste passages. Just a little more and... Okay, go, Adonis declared, letting out an exerted huff as he can now focus on maintaining the seals. The other assistant carefully grabbed the hilt of the Ormal Gladius and, ever so carefully, began removing it. When a certain length has been removed, he then carefully gripped the blade itself to support the removal, ensuring no twitch or loose grip causes even more damage. Little by little, the Ormal Slasha was slowly pulled out, and when it finally did, the second assistant promptly set it aside under the table within a storage box to handle foreign objects. Okay, blades out. Adonis, start cleaning, the Master Surgeon ordered. Once that's done, Serex, you'll handle mending. Go. Without additional instruction, Adonis grabbed a copper bowl, delicately tucked it beside Derek, and began focusing once more. Within a moment, all of the blood spilling out within, as well as other body fluids, began slowly dripping out onto the bowl itself. It was good that the blade wasn't removed. It acted as its own seal. If it was pulled out, Derek's outlook would have been far more dire. The Master Surgeon then checked to see what other signals is being sent to Derek's mind. It was there he found more, but not from his belly. Upon investigation, he discovered it was from his arms and legs. Cock, his muscles are torn. The Master Surgeon sighed. Serex, looks like you have more mending to do. Got it. Serex nodded. Adonis continued to pull out the blood and body fluid that escaped Derek's systems, making sure he got everything. Oh, okay. All clean, Adonis said between breaths, the effort starting to affect him. Moving to mend, Serex announced, rounding the table and taking Adonis's spot, working to quickly fix the damaged tissue. Adonis sat down by the table, the effort of maintaining the seals trivial, but the amount of magic expended both constructing them as well as moving fluid an arduous task. Even through a spinning headache, Adonis maintained his focus. With his fingers motioning his intent, Serex painstakingly reattached the severed tissue, going over every possible area affected by the Ormal Slasha. The magic of mending was a simple one to do, its difficulty defined only by intensity or amount of injuries to heal. The mending took only slightly less time compared to the combined sealing and cleaning. Okay, Gladius' wound is mended. You can let go now, Adonis, Serex informed. With a groaning sigh, Adonis fully relaxed, his spinning headache relieved only slightly. Taking in a breath, Serex moved on to mending the torn muscles on each arm and leg across Derek's body, the unseen wisp of magic gripping and delicately guiding the individual fibers back to their original spots, reattaching them. And done, Serex declared with an exerted huff, leaning on the table. Anything else, sir? No, we're done, the Master Surgeon answered, letting go of Derek. Excellent, outstanding work, you two. We've just saved a life, if only because that Gladius was left in... Holy! One of the repeater bow-armed legionaries huffed, watching Scarface wreak mythical destruction amongst the Ormal. Look at Scaffin go. He's gone berserk, lad, V-Nex responded, sighing with a concerned expression. See the way he's moving? I'm not seeing form or technique anymore. It's all just raw power. If he's killing Ormel, does it matter, sir? The Velite asked with a shrug. In context of this battle, no. Vinex shook his head. But for something else? Very. As soon as Scaffin stops killing and returns to our position, under no circumstances are you to talk to him. Am I understood? Will he kill me if I do? The Velite asked in frightful surprise. No, but I doubt he'll just stop at words. Vinex sighed, unable to look away from the carnage. To put it this way, if you don't want to have a visit with the surgeons, keep your distance. Has he been like this before, sir? The Redrak asked, also unable to look away. I haven't seen it personally, Vinex said. But if you read up on our Legion's history, this has happened a few times. The most recent was, I believe, a couple hundred years ago, when this Legion was almost destroyed by a powerful Ormel tribe. The Velite couldn't come up with a response to that, returning to just quietly watching the monstrous Redrak cut down scores of Ormel with every swing. Soon enough, whether it's the sight of the unstoppable Redrak racking up incredible kill counts, or word has spread about their boss's demise, they all quickly collapsed and began running for their lives, in the same manner as they attacked. Barely organized. No one particular destination. Each Ormel just running wherever is away from Scarface. He chased after a few, his bloodlust still unsatisfied. But soon enough, his senses started to return, heaving and panting as he stood over the endless bodies of Ormel. But not only were his senses returning, it was the blind terror as well. He promised that he would watch over Derek and protect him. But he didn't do that. He fell back into what he was doing, having Derek hole up in a building like all the other villagers. Treated Derek like another civilian, and he almost died for it. If it wasn't for the village messenger running and screaming for his help, Derek would have... He lost himself in a daze, stumbling back to the makeshift camp his Legion set up, his good hand dropping the hastapole he used. The Legionaries, either in awe or fear of him, immediately made way, giving him a path, whispering and murmuring as he passed by. He made his way over to the triage, where he saw Derek lying on a bed, the Ormel Slasha gone. He felt even more terrified. Did he die, or did he survive? Ah, Commander, the Master Surgeon said, walking up to him. I have excellent news. The man you told us to care for will be all right. If that Ormel Gladius had been removed before arriving here, I honestly don't know if we could have saved him. So he'll be all right? Scarface asked weakly, feeling hope return to him. In addition to the blade, I've also discovered his muscles were torn, the surgeon explained. Those have been fixed, and yes, he will be all right. But I must tell you that he needs rest. We've mended his body, but we can't replace what blood or fluid was spilled. We must give him time for his body to replenish itself. I understand, thank you. Scarface nodded, already seeking a private place. Lord, wait! The surgeon exclaimed, following him. Your hand, sir. Let me see to it. Just leave me alone. Please, Scarface pleaded, already feeling what's about to happen. The surgeon was taken aback, but soon nodded. Very well, but please, come see me as soon as you're able. Scarface wandered off without a word, entering the forest that was near the village. As soon as he gained some distance inward, convinced he was alone, he stopped resisting. He let it out. He's a failure. He had over 1,000 years of experience in fighting, and he still allowed his master to be put in danger. He couldn't save him in the ether, and he couldn't save the Empire. And now Derek almost died, again, and it was only by the most divine of chance, the luckiest sequence of decisions and actions, that allowed Derek to survive. He has fought in innumerable battles over the millennia, commanded enough men to conquer the world 5 times over, killed uncountable souls, Ormel and otherwise. And despite all of that, everything he wanted to protect and save still died in front of him. Derek in the ether, the Empire, and this time, almost once again for Derek. But it was more. What if Splinter and Albert got word that Scarface had found Derek alive, but quickly let himself be killed? Didn't do everything he could to save him? It's more than Derek he will lose. He'll lose his only family left. They will blame him, and want nothing to do with him for the rest of eternity, filled with blind hatred towards him for allowing their beloved master to die without them ever knowing. And once he made his realization, his grief and despair rapidly melted into burning rage. Never again. He made a promise, and he'll give his life to uphold it if that's the price. Derek almost died because Scarface didn't make him his absolute priority. He still allowed himself to continue as Scafin, the great Redrak of the Empire, and not Scarface, the beloved pet of Derek the Prommel. Steadying his breathing, rising from the ground, and firmly wiping his tears away, he made his decision. After giving himself some time to recover, allowing his emotional episode to subside, he returned back to the Legion camp. The first person he spotted was the surgeon and approached him. "I'm ready. Go ahead and fix this," Scarface said, holding up his hand with a noticeable split down the palm. "Okay, take a seat and relax." The surgeon nodded. After Scarface did so, the surgeon carefully gripped his wrist and concentrated. The bright yellowish glow of magic soon emanated from the wounded hand, as well as the surgeon's. Over time, the muscles, vessels, and tissue of the hand began moving on their own accord, seeking the other out, resulting in a slow, gradual disappearance of the wound. Within moments, the wound was gone and the hand back to its normal self, but with a fresh new scar that adorned his body, one of many. "How many does that make it now?" the surgeon asked in a lighthearted tone. "Still, your hand should be back to normal now, but considering how long you've waited, keep an eye on it. If you see signs of an infection, come see me immediately." "Is it safe to move Derek, the Grey Redrak?" Scarface asked, ignoring the point. Yes, if you carry him," the surgeon answered after a brief moment of confusion. "As I said, he needs rest. That man, just by what we've mended, he's been through a lot." "I know." Scarface nodded, already approaching the sleeping Redrak. At his bedside, Scarface knelt down and gently laid his hand on Derek's shoulder. Remembering his promise, he ever so delicately placed his arms under Derek and gently lifted him up. After making sure his grip was secure, he began to move towards his personal tent when he was stopped. Excuse me, is he—" the brown-furred Redrak, a bandage on his head, asked with terrified hesitance. "Derek is fine," Scarface answered in an assuring tone. "I'm just keeping a close eye on him, that's all." "So then he was talking about you," the Redrak muttered. Scarface looked at him in confusion. After a moment, the Redrak continued. "My name is Jaunt, sir. When my people and I were looking for one of our own, we found Derek in the woods, starving and alone. It wouldn't have been right to leave him there, so we took him in. It was only recently that I started learning more about him, how he lost his best friends. Scarface, Albert, and Splinter, I believe. When that Ormal was after him, killing Derek, I heard him scream out that name, and that's when you came. As if that wasn't evidence enough, I caught a glimpse at what you were like, killing that first Ormal and then those others. I'm no soldier, but I know what I saw. Lord Scafin, or should I say Scarface, you've been looking for Derek for a very long time, haven't you?" Scarface was taken by complete surprise. With a sigh, he answered, "We thought Derek had died, so we weren't. Well, Splinter and I haven't looked. Albert, he never gave up." Jaunt nodded. "If you mean to take him away somewhere, may I talk to him before then? If only for a short time?" Scarface nodded back. "Of course. I'll look for you when Derek's ready." Jaunt sighed more deeply as he glanced around at his village. While mostly intact, the area that had been breached, where that Ormal nearly killed them, had fallen victim to the Ormal's savagery. "There were times where I wonder why you seem obsessed with killing the Ormal. Well, now I wonder no more. I'm sorry it happened this way, Jaunt." Scarface sighed, looking over the village. "I did the best I could with what I had." "I'm not blaming you, believe me," Jaunt said. "Just, I don't think we're going to forget about this for a very long time. The boss leading the Ormal is dead, and any others who live are running away," Scarface explained, looking at the horizon now. "I strongly doubt you'll come under attack again. Either way, my Legion and I will stay here for a few days, just in case, and help out where we can if you'd allow it." of course, I'm grateful for your help. Jörn smiled with a slight bow. He then let out an anxious sigh. I won't keep you any longer. Suppose I was just buying time so I won't have to start counting our dead and, well, all of you have lived to see tomorrow. Focus on that, Scarface encouraged with a smile. It'll be hard for a while, but you'll figure it out. I hope so, but still, thank you. Jörn smiled wider and then made his way to his people. Scarface returned to his walk, soon arriving at his personal tent. Carefully entering, he looked at his bed. As much as he wanted to stay close and protect him, it's just not practical. He decided that he'll sleep on the ground for however long is needed. Approaching the bed, he gently lowered Derek onto it. Kneeling, he gave Derek a warm, grateful embrace. After several long moments, he reluctantly released him and then settled in on the ground next to the bed, beginning to feel the day's exhaustion bloom in his body. Moseon, Swabia. All right, he should be fine now, the apothecary reported, voice muffled by the bird-like mask he wore. Must admit, those Wamel know their craft. Expertly cut, no crude interruptions or flinching. All nice and thank you, Ardor interrupted with a minor glare. Tend to my men, I wish to speak with the Wudrak alone. Understood, sire, the apothecary bowed and walked away. Entering the room, Ardor saw the Wudrak trying to get off the table without sitting up. May I know your name, good sir? Ardor asked with kind politeness. The Wudrak only glared at him, freezing in place. You don't... Oh, get to know my name. Ardor sighed. I understand your rage, friend, but... Friend? The Wudrak interrupted, letting out a disbelieving laugh. You would actually say that? After everything you've done to me when I came here? Why would I ever help your kind? Ardor stayed silent. He knew this rage, the Wudrak. No matter what he would say, the man would just seek the ulterior motive behind it. Although he doesn't share the other highborn sense of joy towards the Drakfolk, he does not deny that he's done anything that would make him be considered a friend. Appealing to the heart will be useless, especially one that has been torn repeatedly. I understand, good sir, Ardor began, keeping his voice kind and calm. While I haven't witnessed what they've done specifically, Many things. He interrupted again, teeth bared as, in his anger, he sat up. No matter what I've done, there's always something. Good elixir thrown onto my face simply because I was a Drak. A highborn making me trip, then blaming me for being clumsy of foot. I even had a Hamel woman threaten to accuse me of assaulting her if I didn't tend to her needs precisely. I don't want anything to do with you ever. I'm taking that Eastern highborn suggestion and getting out of here to the east. The man you were accused of murdering? Yes? Ardor asked. The Wudrak moved to speak but stayed silent, deciding it wasn't worth the effort. Ardor let out a sigh. You remember what I said when you were under the effects of the Wamel poison? I meant it. You want to move to the east? If you tell me everything you know, anything, I promise you, I will escort you there personally if needed. No! I got something better, the Wudrak growled, rising to his feet. If I help you, do you promise to change things? Will you make the Drakfolk equal before the eyes of your law? Under the kingdom's law? Ardor fell silent. He couldn't give an answer. He wanted to say yes to obtain his cooperation, but, with politics rapidly coming to mind, he knew that if the Drak went to the east, learned of Artir's deceit, and informed the new Unterkaiser about it, that'll generate an intense wave of secessionist sentiments. But he couldn't honor it either. The highborn are deeply entrenched in what is now considered ancient tradition. He'll make countless enemies who will work against him, conducting schemes that will be to the detriment of the kingdom. At his silence, the Wudrak became even more enraged, but one of calm. Of course. Why did I even bother? I'm afraid it is not as simple as you believe it to be, Ardor said with dejection. I think it is, the Wudrak said with the fiercest of glares. Even if it helps, you just simply cannot even say we're your equals, even if it's a lie. That's how arrogant your people are. But what truly astounds me, you dare call yourselves the proud descendants of the Primel, while being everything they are not. My lord, one of the guardsmen spoke as they entered the room cautiously. What? Arthur sighed with anger at the interruption. The Unterkaiser has arrived at your palace, sir, the guard answered nervously. With, guess, from what I'm told, there's a, potential for a scene. Arthur needed a moment to recollect himself. What a day this is turning out to be. Discovering that there's a scheme at work, a woodrock filled with so much justifiable hatred that he refuses any and all cooperation, and now he has to deal with a political event? Woodrock, if you're still certain about not helping us, Artyr began, then you're free to leave. One of my men will show you the way. The woodrock did not reply, more like waiting for Arthur to leave so he wouldn't get close. With a sigh, the Swabian king accepted this result and made his way to his throne room, not at all happy at what might be happening. When he arrived, it was something he did not expect, and one that is far worse than he imagined. There was the new Unterkaiser himself, Alfric III, flanked by his woodrock companion, Genor. But with him were Eastern Highborn. Artyr recognizes several of those who were named an Eastern Lord, but the rest was a shock to him, as well as to the Highborn who were mingling within his chamber. In addition to the Hamel, there were drag folk of all kinds bearing Swabian noble attire. Woodrock, Fodrak, even a couple of Redraks and Sadraks too. To finally complete this shocking scene, Artyr has spotted what is undoubtedly Hamels wedded to Drax. "Shame on you," one of the Western Highborn shouted. "Shame! That's a Drak! The indecency!" another wailed. "Athel weeps at this." "Enough!" Artyr shouted above the clamor, echoing on the walls and immediately grabbing everyone's attention. Slowly approaching Alfric, who bore a determined expression, the Swabian king drew himself close, needing all of his focus to maintain a presentable manner. "Unterkaiser Alfric, I must admit, you have me at a disadvantage. I just thought maybe it's time we got to know each other." "HM?" Alfric answered with a half-grin. "Or perhaps, my father did not explain how incompatible we are properly, so I'm seeking to do a better job at that." "That you bed animals?" a Highborn screamed. "That you're sick-minded? You deserve to be whipped." "Silence!" Arthur raised his voice firmly, allowing some of his frustration to show. He then returned his attention to Alfric. "Well, I won't lie. You've made an excellent case here, but you do so at offense to—" "Offense, huh?" Alfric interrupted with a mocking laugh. "Come on, Arthur, let's finally face it. Your bloodline is a mockery of Athel himself. It's the Order who carries his blood, not your pitiful brats. Your entire family was founded on an unwanted bastard." The entire room erupted in shocked gasps at his words. Arthur visibly, intensely bristled in response, but managed to keep his calm. "Alfric, your father has just died. I am very sorry at such a tragic and senseless death. But I beg of you, as one who seeks family, do not let yourself be controlled by your grief. What do you hope to gain from all of this?" "I'm glad you asked, King," Alfric replied, fishing out a rolled-up parchment from his bag, then unfurling it and handing it to Arthur. It was a list of demands, all aimed at extending legal protections to the Drakfolk. To give everyone a short summary, these are my list of demands. All of them amount to one undeniable truth. The Drakfolk, just as we and the other Melfolk have, inherited some aspect of the Promal people. Whether animal or not, the Promal saw friendship in them. We must do the same. It's time that we stop treating them with horrid cruelty and extend our hand in coexistence with them. The entire room erupted in a furious, frenzied shouting, all directed at the Easterners. While some were visibly unnerved, others held fast, maintaining their determined expressions. "Silence!" Arthur loosed a terrifying shout, one filled with all the authority and gravitas of a king. The room immediately quieted down. Arthur stared at the list for several moments before looking at Alfric. "I can see this is something you're passionate about. Is this something you will truly fight for?" Alfric nodded, slowly but intently. "To my last breath." "Well, it has happened. This is either the first step or the breaking point of Swabia's future. This issue has come to a head. He cannot afford to make this even a second priority. He must devote his entire attention to this in order to preserve the unity of Hamelkind." "Very well. So long as your blade remains stayed, I am willing to speak with you on this, Arter stated loud and clear. And as I'm sure you know, there are many who will resist this plan. In the name of this kingdom, I implore every one of us to do our part in arriving to an agreement that, while it may not be satisfactory, it is something we can accept. The Western highborn started to whisper among themselves, no doubt confused or even doubting the king's wisdom. Alfric seemed to have relaxed somewhat and nodded. While I'm sure you feared an open revolt, let me assure you, I want to exhaust all possible, peaceful options before I even consider it. At least there was hope. Artyr let out a relieved smile. As am I. I wish to openly apologize for the behavior that my kin has given you, Unterkaiser. Artyr knelt down and bowed before Alfric, fully committed. The Westerners let out a smaller gasp in shocked disbelief at what they are seeing. All of you are forgiven, my liege, Alfric replied with a smile. Artyr rose back to his feet and nodded. Alfric let out a sigh to expunge any built-up nerves he had, and then said, Now then, let us discuss a time to begin. Stop! A voice broke the air. Artyr turned to the source. It was the Woodrock from the dungeon, the one who faced a wammel. He still bore no clothes save for undergarments, fully exposing his stitched chest, which elicited one more gasp, both from the Westerners and a stronger one from the Easterners. Alfric especially gave a glare to Artyr, who now began to suffer a cold sweat. Stop! Stop! The Woodrock begged, dropping to his knees before Alfric. You're making a mistake. Don't do this, Unterkaiser. Please! Good sir, what's the meaning of this? Alfric asked, both of the Woodrock as well as Artyr. I'm a victim of these people's idle scheming, the Woodrock shouted out, gripping Alfric's arms, sheer terrorized panic in his eyes. One of the highborn women threatened to accuse me of forcing myself on her if I allowed anyone but the old Unterkaiser to take the drinks I was serving. And then they brought a wammel in after arresting me. Filthy mongrel, unhand him, a Western highborn shouted. That's a hamel you're shaming yourself to. You shut your mouth, a Redrak highborn responded, pointing at the man. Speak when spoken to, vermin, another Westerner joined in with a snarl. Artyr, I demand honesty, Alfric said with a cold, low voice, slowly glaring at him. Is what he says true? Artyr couldn't help but swallow, fighting the whelm through his tension. I have been working on investigating the cause of your father's death. I cannot tell you if it is true or not. He has not cooperated with me. Let me ask this then. Alfric nodded in dark thought. Do you think it likely that is the truth then? Artyr froze. It was the thought. He was fully aware of the Western nobility's habit of using Drog folks as pawns or tools in their idle scheming and intrigue. But it was that moment of hesitation that Alfric latched on to. I see, Alfric said simply, helping the Woodrock up. It appears that we have caused trouble within your home. With our sincere apologies, we'll take our leave now. Alfric, Artyr spoke out, stepping towards the Unterkaiser. I know I haven't earned your trust yet, so give me a chance to do so. Let me continue to try and find out what happened to your father. The young Eastman sighed and slowly faced Artyr. I'm going to be honest with you, King. This is something that's been on my mind for a very long time. I want to give you time to resolve this, I really do. But ing here, seeing how these people treated my own, what might have happened with this poor man here, it has forced me to think on this matter far more deeply than I have. Artyr was silent. For the first time, nothing was coming to him. It was not simple hesitation born out of a thought. It was truly a stunned freeze, having lost the ability to determine a response. With a disappointed sigh, Ulfric, Gainor, and the rest of the Eastern lords and nobles soon made their departure from the throne room, and then the palace proper. Chapter 15. A Demel town, far east of Swabia. Looks like a storm's brewing, a Demel male commented, sighing as he took a swig from his tankard. See the clouds? I reckon it'll be 3 days at the most before it hits us. Aye, good thing we've already planted the next harvest. Another nodded, munching on a thick loaf of bread. The storm will give plenty of water to the seeds. I hope Stogran gets here before then, the first said as he looked beyond the town's edge, seeing the stone road disappear into the horizon. It's been several days now. Hope the lad's all right. Bet he took too much of the hops. The second laughed after spending a moment to remember something. Maybe he scored some excellent deals from those strange Hamels way out on the other side of the world. I hope so. Town could use the coin. The stocky male chuckled in response, looking around at the town proper. Borman's tavern is in sore need of new building material. Hey, surprised it hasn't fallen apart yet. Wait, is that him? The second pointed a stubby finger out at the faintly moving figure. The first man squinted to try and get a better look. They spent several minutes waiting before the finer details became clearer. It was definitely Stogran, except he's missing his equus haulers. In fact, it's just him and nothing else in sight, and he seems to be running as fast as his dumb old legs could go. "Aw, Bingham, what do you think he's done now?" The second groaned, his hopes dashed now. "No idea. This is really strange." Bingham shrugged. "Let's ask when he gets here." The next several minutes were spent waiting for Stogran to get within the town's edge. As he got closer, more and more details were revealed. Bingham saw that his face was blackened with the refuse of fire. His clothes seemed dirty and tattered. He's even starting to think that Stogran has lost weight. Too much, in fact. Once he got within earshot, he was panting and heaving. Bingham is starting to believe that he's been running like this for days now. In between his breaths, he coughed, letting out a sound that signals both exhaustion and parched thirst. Bingham is starting to worry heavily now. Beasts! Stogran exclaimed once he stumbled onto Bingham. Burning! Everything! Whoa, lad! Slow down! What happened? Bingham said, gripping his arms to help. Boren, get some water for the boy! Stogran could only cough while Boren grabbed some water. As soon as he gave the tankard to Stogran, the parched trader guzzled the water down, several streams dripping off his chin as he gulped down massive quantities at a time, finishing the drink in seconds. Flying beasts! Spitting fire! He said, his voice clearer now. I don't know how I got away. I cut my rope when they weren't looking. They were... Stop, Bogran interrupted. What are you on about? Flying beasts that spit fire? What are you talking about? It's an army, Stogran exclaimed once more. An army of flying beasts ridden by Dracs and Mals from the east. But there's more. A Hamel is leading them, claiming to be a Prommel. Is he now? Bingham said in thought. Are you sure you haven't just had one of them beer nightmares or something? I did see you take a few casts before you left. Bogran chuckled a little. You have to believe me, Stogran shouted. They're coming. They were resting when I got away, but they have to be any day now. We have to leave now. I think we should give him a bed. Who knows how tired he is? Bogran shrugged. I'll bring this up with the Druzkala and see what he thinks. Bingham nodded. Much to his strong dismay, they both dragged the haggard Stogran towards an inn, back in Mousillon. Ardor had never felt more livid than ever before. The threat of secession is now almost a certainty, all because that cursed Drac thing couldn't get past his blind hatred. Swabia is going to fall apart on his rule. He can't allow it. He needs to figure something out, fast. As he rounded a corner, a familiar figure caught his eye and his rage. Adden, one of the guards who accompanied him in the dungeon where they rescued that ungrateful Drac. Just standing there like nothing is wrong. Sir? His guard gave a protest as Ardor approached. You, Ardor said with dripping hate. What happened? Why did you allow that Woodrock to be brought here? Explain yourself now. Adden did not respond, unmoving. Ardor waited, and still no response, which only further inflamed his rage. Oh, our lord demands an answer, Aiden. The guard muttered after getting close to Aiden. Hurry! Ardor moved a step in front of Aiden, forcing attention onto himself. Adden's eyes were down on the floor, unmoving. Ardor even spotted a faint line of drool escaping his mouth. Seeing that detail extinguished any flame within him, now a hesitant concern. He raised his hand near Aiden's face and snapped his fingers a few times, attempting to get his attention. Still nothing. Still staring at the floor, unaware of his leak. Still unmoving. "Aden?" the guard said, nudging him by the shoulder. "Go, whoa, what?" Aiden sputtered, shooting to life. He tried to get his bearings, then spotted his friend and the king. Where did you two come from? And where's the Woodrak?" "Adan, the Woodrak ruined everything," the guard explained. "He got to the main throne room, told lies about our king, and may as well have single-handedly started a rebellion." "What happened?" "What? I was just escorting him out of the palace as he requested," Aden protested, still looking around in a confused daze. We came here, and then, suddenly, you two are here, and that Woodrak isn't—" Arter felt a chill run down his spine. "No, this isn't the case of an incompetent guard. It's something worse, something he's feared. The assassination of the previous Unterkaiser. His son will be emotionally raw. If he was given the proper push, Arter can't deny it anymore. The assassination itself, he could reasonably assume it was his own highborn. But now, sending an emotional Woodrak, filled with hatred towards his people, to further inflame the grieving son of the dead Unterkaiser, and having done so when his own guard has fallen into some trance. No, it can't be denied anymore. Someone is working to tear Sweeby apart from within." "Louis, is Jacques still in his office, Horiduala?" Artir demanded in a chilling, calm voice. I think so," he shrugged. "Can't tell if he has another entrance or what. He's either there or he's not. Get Aden to an apothecary, have him checked for magic," Artir ordered, already moving. "I need to find Jacques." What will do, sir." Louis nodded, already helping the confused Adan. Arter practically ran through every hallway on his way to Jacques' office. He needs to find him. Tell him that it's not just the Western highborns getting carried away with their idle scheming. Sweeby is being attacked by a foreign enemy from the shadows, and they've already dealt a crippling blow before they were even noticed. Finding the door, he practically barged right in, startling the spymaster. "My lord!" "Jacques, we're in a crisis," Artir declared, shutting the door quickly. "The Woodrak who stood accused of murdering Alfric, he was but a pawn in a scheme. Alfric's son just arrived to make his political demands, and that Woodrak came in and pushed him toward secession." "How?" "The guard escorting the Woodrak was affected by magic, set in a trance. Our kingdom is under attack by an enemy in the shadows." Jacques bristled when Arter finished, leaning in his seat, taking in a deep breath as he ran through the information. His face tensed more and more as he started arriving at his conclusion, ending by nodding grimly towards Arter. "I feared that was the case, but I didn't have the evidence to fully believe it." Jacques sighed. "If your guard truly was put into a trance, my guess is the same caster encouraged the Woodrak to do what he did. My kingdom, our people's home, is falling apart in front of my eyes, Jacques," Artir exclaimed, pacing. "Alfric will declare independence as soon as he arrives home. I know it. I can't let this happen, not let the future of our people be put in danger. Tell me you have something." Jacques was silent, moving to speak, but nothing coming out. "Please," Arter begged, hands on the desk. "I can't watch my people tear each other apart like this. There has to be something, anything." "The only person we suspected, Jaunt, has been cleared." Jacques sighed deeply. "We suspected him because he was the last person to speak to Alfric, voicing his displeasure at the Eastmen's culture at that. But we have found nothing that even hints any involvement. My men are still on watch for any suspicious activities, as well as determining who could pull such strings." Arter felt the entire world slip from his feet, needing to take a seat. He's never felt so helpless before. Alfric may have been too far gone in thinking independence is the only action, but Arter is still adamant on finding out how to prevent war. He can't just simply accept their declaration. It'll be political suicide for him. Several powerful lords will form a coalition and move to attack Alfric and his people themselves, and that will only undermine his authority. So he must answer their call with his sword, but that would mean putting many innocent men and women to their deaths. Some who didn't even care about this issue, just wanting to build and live their own lives. Jacques, ... It seems there's only one option left, Artur announced after many long moments of silence. He looked at his spy master square in the eyes with a grim look. We must contact the Shadowrunners. I must give you my protest on that course of action, my liege, Jacques said quickly. We know how they operate. If you want information, you must supply them information of equal value. Knowledge on who is undermining or weakening Swabia, that is extremely valuable, such that anything we can give is simply unacceptable. You must remember the price, my liege. No price is too great if it means saving my kingdom, Jacques, Artur replied simply. If it means preventing senseless bloodshed between the Swabian people. I would much rather deal with furious highborn than preside over a war that slaughters my people. Are you sure, my lord? Jacques sighed after a moment of pause. Whatever you must give, I see only damnation that will present itself sometime in the coming days. Do not misunderstand. Artur shook his head, slowly rising. I know what it is I'm doing. If I have made a mistake, I will own it and do everything I can to fix it. But I just don't have the luxury of trying something else. We need something that we know will work. And now that you say that, Jacques said with a finger raised, how are you even certain that the Shadowrunners even know who's behind it? Artur just let out a defeated shrug. Do we have a choice? Do we even have time? Jacques moved to speak, but choked at the last second, realizing the point. I understand ... In that case, here's what you must do. Find a single winter flower. When night has come, place it upon a window and burn the flower. Then you must simply wait. Understood. Artur nodded, making sure to mentally note the instructions. Now, I believe I may know what information will be enticing enough. And that would be, Jacques asked with some hesitance. Artur looked at him with serious intent. I'm traveling to Flensburg. I'm going to see if the order has received a dream or not. Jacques remained still for several moments before he responded. And if they haven't? Artur's lips tensed before he spoke. Then, Athel give mercy to us all. Parnax village. Derek awoke to some new location. As he did, he could feel his entire body just ache, as if he had jogged an entire national park and was not given enough rest before doing another. And then it all came back to him, running from that huge orc. Seeing Lasdius's head roll on the ground, the blade, it made him sit up rapidly, the fear surging through his body before the ache took over, making him recoil. Hey, easy, easy, Scarface said, carefully helping Derek back down against the bed. He then sighed, his anger scent spiking. What did I say about getting killed after I found you, huh? I was going to beat your face, remember? Derek didn't answer, starting to feel sick. Crossing his arms over his chest, somewhat gripping his shoulders, he moved slowly onto his side away from Scarface. That changed his mood rapidly, now of deep concern. Derek, did you know that, Derek began, stammering over his words, when your head's cut off, you live just a few seconds long enough to make a face? I saw that with little Lascivious. Hey, look at me. Scarface gripped Derek gently and moved him onto his back, forcing eye contact. Don't think about it, all right? Focus on me. I'm right here. You're safe. Derek did. He tried to focus as much as he could on his anthropomorphic pet. All it did was just push him to his limit, clutching and pulling at Scarface's arm, who quickly wrapped him close. I don't want to be here anymore, Derek pleaded tearfully. I hate this place. I want to go home. It's okay. You're all right, Scarface responded, rubbing his back, doing everything he could to console him. I made a mistake. I know. I made a promise, and I didn't keep it. I'm so sorry for that. You're not leaving my sight ever again. Nothing will happen to you as long as I'm breathing. They held each other for what they perceived as an eternity, with Derek desperate for some sense of safety, and Scarface doing his best to provide it. Can we find the others, please? Derek asked after some time, sniffling some. Of course, that was always the plan once this was done. Scarface smiled with a nod. You will be safe. I'll make sure of it. Oh, well, ain't that not worth it? One of the Ormo complained loudly, sitting on a large rock. The boss is dead. We got to walk through a bunch of ready camps to get out of here, and we got nothing on top of it. Shoulda known better. Another grunted, setting down his cutta. So long as that blood-covered ready's about, the readies may as well be not messed with. Oi, Tora want to come with? The first asked, Tora sulking some distance away. I hear Skag No Tooth is looking for boys. Want to join up with him? Tora was silent for a while before he turned around to face them, an expression of slighted anger. Is he going to stomp them readies? Why would he do that, you git? The first Ormal asked in shock. Did you not see what that blood ready did? Cut down a lot of our boys with each swing of that cut-a stick he had. And that was after he used his own teeth to kill the boss. Why would we attack his boys again? You saying you ain't mad? Tora asked, sitting down near them. You ain't mad at that embarrassing smashing they gave us? We had everything going for us, stronger, more boys than they did, and they still won. Course we's mad you get, the second answered, but we's ain't stupid either. Nobody can touch that blood-covered ready, nobody. As long as he's boss of the readies, we can't do's a thing about it. Nah, we just needed more boys is all. Tora shook his head, determined to get payback for being embarrassed. The boss just stomped one lousy tribe and called it good. He knew we needed a lot of boys, but he didn't get 'em. That is what got the git killed. I ain't going to make that mistake. Guess you stupid then. The first Ormal sighed as he got up. Come on, let's go find Skag. With any luck, he won't have us be cutting sticks and stuff. Go on, run like the scared gits yous are then, Tora taunted as they began their journey, one of them giving a dismissive wave. Once they left his sight, Tora sighed and already began to plan out his revenge. It wasn't just being embarrassed. That's just a given. He's seen what the Reddies had. Even though it was a small camp, he's gotten a look at what they had, and he liked what he saw. Lots and lots of shinies, and he wanted them. Not even the Hamel had shinies worth anything now. It's all Reddy shinies. My, how the mighty have fallen, HM? A voice startled him, calm, almost regal in tone. Tora rapidly spun to where the voice originated, finding a Hamel dressed in dark robes and hood smiling. You better have shinies on you or there's going to be a problem, Tora warned, already clenching his fists. Now, I'm here only to help, the Hamel said with a hand raised. I've heard what you said about how embarrassing it was that the Redrax defeated you, despite all the advantages you had. Yeah? What's a lousy hammy like you gonna do? Tora asked dismissively. You lot just stay inside your camps and try to be peaceful about things. We still talk about how you lot used to be pretty good at fighting. Now look at yous. Staying inside your fancy camps, scared at anything that moves. I assure you, my savage friend. The Hamel chuckled. Just because we're not looking for fights does not mean we've forgotten. I'll put it this way. Every fight that could happen these days, just boring, not worth the time. Yeah? Tora questioned, rising to anger. That's what yous think? You's too strong to even smash some lowly gits? Let me see it then. Oh, come now, I'm offering my help in your endeavor, and you're here arguing with me. The man sighed. Can you please just humor me, if only once? You gots to earn it, Hammy. Tora grinned, gripping a thick stick. More than enough for his needs. The mysterious stranger let out a disappointed sigh. Very well, calm me at me then. He needed no other cue. Tora already charged right at him, stick ready for the smashing. Here we go. Right before he could make his swing, the Hamel raised his hand towards Tora and snapped his fingers. In an instant, a massive purple-like shockwave exploded forth from his hand, rocketing Tora backwards a good distance, rolling to a stop. Tora quickly got back to his feet, glaring at the Hamel. Oi, he shouted. Yous didn't say you were a shay man, you cheatin' git. Why didn't you say so? The stranger looked at his attire before back at Tora. I thought it would have been obvious. Or did you believe that we couldn't use magic? Ah, shut up, you git, Tora sighed. While the Hammy wasn't a fighter, he was a shaman. Mastery of magic alone is a pretty good skill amongst the Ormel, on par with experienced fighters. Fine, yous want to help? I'm listening, but it better be worth it. The Hummel grinned widely. Oh, I assure you, it is well worth it. Let me ask you this. Do you know about Morgrim the Great Slasha? Tora stopped in his tracks, looking at the Hamel slack-jawed. Course we do, you get. Everybody knows him. What about him? The Hamel shaman chuckled. What do you know about one of his most treasured items? His scary face. Tora continued to stare at him. Only that if you find it and put it on, Morgrim's slashin' will flow right through you, as if you were Morgrim himself. The man continued his grin. I know where it is. Tora went slack-jawed, far deeper this time, and approached the Hamel. You do? No tricks? None at all, he replied as he shook his head. As I said, I wish to help. And you understand that your old boss made a crucial mistake preparing for his attack into Redrak territory. If you're grabbing up more boys, finding and wearing that scary face will make it a lot easier to do so. Course it would, you get, Tora exclaimed, barely believing what he's hearing. Morgrim's scary face. And it could be his. Not only will he become a better boss than Hagrim ever would, he'll be a better fighter too. Well, out with it. Where is his scary face? Far to the west from the Hamel kingdom of Swabia, the shaman explained, pointing towards the direction. I'd say it would be several days of walking. Don't worry, if you'll have me, I will pledge myself under you, boss. Tells you what, Tora said, walking up beside him. If yous ain't lying, and you get me that scary face, I'll actually call you the boss. Oh, that quickly? The Hamel asked in surprise. Even after just a small, petty spell like I threw at you? Tora stared at him again. Yous call that small? I flew like one of them birdie things. And yeah, you's a shay man after all. Know enough of them magic and hardly any good boy will get you. The Hamel laughed in response. Very well. It's a deal then, sir. I'll call you boss for now, and once we find the scary face, I become the boss, yeah? Deal, Tora nodded, both excited at the prospects of becoming Morgrim himself, as well as anxious about the strange hammy he picked up. Now then, let's go ahead and get moving. Once the big shiny is down, we'll sleep. Understood, boss. Follow me, the mage replied, beginning the journey. Flensburg, Swabia, near midnight. Ah, my lord, one of the tribunes exclaimed upon sighting King Arthur, striding in. I must admit, your surprise visit has put us at a disadvantage. Please forgive us if our accommodations are not to your satisfaction. Don't worry, Tribune. Arthur smiled with a small bow. On the contrary, I hope that my intrusion does not disrupt anything important. Not at all. Please, come. The Tribune motioned for Arthur to follow. They walked past the entry courtyard of the imposing fort of the Order of St. Athel's Knights and into the main structure itself, a towering building where thin steps designed to show a diamond to the onlooker led to the only entrance. The fort housing the order was made with defense in mind. A deep moat surrounded the fort, with only a bridge allowing access, capable of rapidly lowering and raising on a moment's notice. Past the drawbridge, a single, narrow passageway snaked its way up to the main entrance, flanked by tall walls that could house many archers, raining death on any incoming attackers. This was only the first of 2 layers of walls. If the attackers somehow made their way past this outer wall, there's an entirely new set of walls to contend with. Defenders can use underground tunnels to rapidly switch between the two, and should any attacker discover them, supports built with magic, when one speaks an extremely guarded phrase, will disappear, allowing the ground to cave in on the tunnels. Artar had heard about this design, but seeing it in person had left quite the impression on him. If the Order had wanted nothing to do with Swabia, there'd be nothing he can do to force them to come back. After they scaled the steps and entered the main building, Arthur discovered a large concentric ring in the floor ahead of them, with seats lining each layer, all arrayed around a central platform with a passageway connected to the opposite end. Let me see if the Grand Master is available, Your Highness, the Tribune said with a bow. Please, wait here. Thank you, good sir. Arthur bowed in return and leaned on the wall. He tried everything he could to keep his tension and anticipation down. He came all this way to try and acquire information he could use to buy a name, be that an individual or a group. He just needs something right now. If he relied solely on Jacques and his network, anything he could find would be too late before he can use it. Whether he was in deep thought or the Grandmaster was nearby, it felt as though he didn't wait long. Grandmaster Ironwald arrived, the aged Hamel smiling when he saw Arthur. "Welcome to my humble home, Your Majesty," he said, extending his hand. Arthur took it and shook, smiling back. Ironwald then dropped his smile, though not of ill intent. "I hope you haven't come asking if I've dreamed yet, have you?" Arthur sighed, then stayed silent. Ironwald tensed his face in response. "Arthur, you know of the sacred law. None of us can break it. I'm aware." Arthur nodded solemnly. "But I'm desperate, Grandmaster. Swabia is about to fall apart, and I don't know how to stop it. I need something, please." Ironwald was surprised, slowly crossing his arms. "Explain." Arthur told him everything he could about the assassination of Alfric II, the uncertainty of the Woodrock's role in his outburst that pushed Alfric III towards considering secession, and then the trance he found his guard in who was escorting the Woodrock. Ironwald thought over it deeply, seeing if he could draw any kind of prediction or thought of it compared to what he's been dreaming. "Grandmaster, is there anything you can tell me?" Arthur begged. "Please, I know this can still be solved with peace. I just need to find out who exactly is pushing us towards violence." Ironwald sighed and looked to Arthur. "I'm sorry, but we have nothing. By sacred law, I cannot say whether I am dreaming or not. Forgive me, Your Majesty." Arthur felt defeated. Is this truly what fate has in store for his people? Peace was never an option, just an illusion to provide further torment for him? Is Swabia doomed to be fractured? Hamelkind destined to quarrel amongst themselves? He can't help but feel this is how it is, that no matter how hard he tries, there's nothing he can do, that this was preordained. "No, forgive me, Grandmaster," Arthur said after a deep sigh. "I was blinded by my desperation. I shouldn't have made such a request. I thank you for your patience. By your grace, I shall take my leave." "My prayers be to your people, King Arthur," Ironwald said, "as well as to the best possible end to what will befall upon you." Arthur nodded and took his leave, his retinue following shortly after. He heard the main door close behind him, seeing the inner courtyard of the fort, as well as the doors to hell. He stepped onto the grass of the courtyard when he saw his guards took up a defensive stance around him. "Halt! Your Majesty, wait!" a voice exclaimed. Arthur looked to the source. It was a Hamel, no doubt a tribune as well. On a hunch, Arthur told his guards to stand down and allowed the young man to approach. "Thank you, sire." The young tribune bowed before putting on a serious expression. "You've come because something is happening, isn't there?" Whether it's by his desperation or by some unspoken instinct, Arthur nodded but chose to withhold details. "And let me guess, those cowards said nothing. Claiming sacred law, correct?" the man said with a scowl. Arthur nodded again. The tribune sighed. "Why can't they understand that people will get hurt, killed if we don't do something?" "Tribune, what are you implying here?" Arthur asked, feeling some hope rising, yet preparing himself for another dead end. He looked at him square in the eyes. "Grandmaster Ironwald has been dreaming. Has been for a couple of weeks now. It involves you and Swabia." Arthur took in a breath as shock coursed his body. "Tell me everything, please." The man nodded. The dream was of war between Swabia and the Redrak people. Yes, the Redraks. According to Ironwald's dream, the Redraks are uniting, resurrecting their empire of old. We don't know what exactly will happen, or how it'll happen, but we are absolutely certain that Hamel and Redrak alike will be at war against each other. Arthur shuddered. Could this be it? Has he just found the identity of the schemers working to destroy his kingdom? A resurgent Redrak, people sowing the seeds for a triumphant return to the world, with one of those seeds being the dissolution of Hamilkin's unity? "Young man," Arthur began once he recollected himself, "you've taken an incredible risk by telling me this. Cowardly or not, sacred law is extremely serious amongst the order. Should they learn of this?" "I don't care," the tribune said firmly. It's just as I have said. They're cowards. They're disconnected from this world. They're choosing to lie to you all because it could be false? No, I will not accept that. They need to realize these are people's lives they're playing with. Innocent men and women who could meet a senseless end while they play philosopher in debates. If it could be false, then it's equally possible that it's true as well, and we can't completely rely on, for this one, it being false. Please, I beg of you, my lord, don't let those cowards hiding from the world dictate who lives or dies. Arter's frame swelled. Now he knows. Who else could desire Suebia's destruction more than the ancient descendants of a once great empire? If they're truly planning to reunite, defeating an ancient enemy before they make their entrance is a prudent move. In fact, they were intelligent by making moves for the long term. Instead of working to quickly and loudly unite the Redrak people, inviting the Melfolk's wrath, instead, they are quietly moving to weaken them. That way, when they do make their bid to revive the Redrak Empire, the Melfolk kingdoms will be too weakened to crush them. I am in your debt, Tribune, Artir said with a deep bow. If you find yourself in dire trouble, please make haste to my court. I will welcome you there with open arms. May I know your name so that I may inform my guards? The Tribune breathed a sigh of relief as well as relaxing before he gave his answer. Zerkaria, my lord.